Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Lonnie Clinkscale, and I am so excited to have this opportunity to have you to be a part of our episode on Hey Dummy, a testimony of an overcomer. Before I go into the podcast, I would like to introduce you to my friend who has really been an inspirational leader for me to get to this point to putting together our podcast. And that is Mr. Phil.
Hi, Lonnie. How you doing today? You doing okay?
I'm doing very good, my friend.
Wow. Well, today is going to be a really special show because this is the first show. So this is the show where
Excellent.
we learn all about you. We learn all about your story, your history, and your future and your plans for the show. So first of all, I want to ask, how are you?
I am doing terrific. I'm doing terrific here. Just a little bit nervous with my first podcast, but I know that we'll get through it. I would like to talk about, often I have asked, what is Hey Dummy all about? And what is your purpose? What is your mission? Well, my mission is, as many have known that have read the Hey Dummy testimony of an overcomer, or have even listened to it through Audibles or Amazon, I talk about my life story with having learning disabilities, not being able to read or write, and often made fun of by my fellow classmates and even some of my closest friends. So what is that mission? My mission is I want to be able to have everyone to be able to read and understand that despite the odds that you may be going through, just by listening to Lonnie's testimony, that you will be inspired to reach and accomplish any goal that you set your mind to it. Yes, sometimes, as I have mentioned, there may be some difficulties along the way. However, but the various support systems that are in place for children or even adults with learning disabilities, you can overcome that. Now, let's first talk about for a moment, when I talk about the mission, to really to inspire you and give you a clear understanding what that mission would be, the first thing we want to make sure we educate our listeners, and we're going to have a future guest that will be coming on to the podcast. They will talk about what is learning disabilities, because there's different aspects of learning disabilities in which our educators, special guests, will go through. Also, they'll talk about the different trainings that will help a child or a young adult or an adult himself to be able to overcome those obstacles. For an example, I had a speech impediment. I stuttered over my words. Well, guess what? We're going to have a guest that's going to show you how they help Lonnie and other students and what have you to overcome those disabilities. Secondly, we're going to be able, with our guests, to also talk about what support systems that are available in our educational system. Also, we're going to dive just a little bit deeper to also talk about what other support, let's say, for job opportunities or what have you. I am so excited that I just can't wait, Phil, for our next podcast to be able to get more involved and more in depth in that. Also, as part of our mission, when you go to the podcast site, the blog, we're going to be listening and putting up other articles from the National Center for Learning Disabilities. So that way you'll have that opportunity that you'll be able to gain more knowledge on what is learning disabilities. So what I like to do at this point, I want to tell you, how did Lonnie get to this point? Well, I had learning disabilities. I couldn't read, couldn't write, couldn't spell. As I had stated earlier, often I was made fun of Even in the school system, they made fun of me, because for the life of me, I could not read or write or stuttered over my words. So often when you looked at my background as a child, I have 5 siblings, myself, including 6 children in the household. My father and my mother, we all lived in poverty. We lived in one of the most toughest areas in the city of Ohio, and that's Youngstown, Ohio. Unfortunately, Youngstown, Ohio was rated 8th in the nation for the amount of homicides, and in Youngstown, the population at that time was just only 76,000. Nevertheless, as a child, I had to struggle through that. I had to, my family did not have the clothing that we needed, even though mom and dad was doing the best that they can with the resources that they had. For example, my dad, he worked at U.S. Steel. I'm sure that many of you probably heard of what they call Black Friday. Black Friday occurred when all of the steel mills in Youngstown, Ohio closed their doors. That represented, I am almost positive, but close to about over 40,000 men and women lost their jobs in the U.S. Steel in Youngstown, Ohio. So Dad had to struggle. He could not really provide, and often Dad got so frustrated with his children that sometimes we experience abuse that affected our learning, affected our later on in our relationships. It affected even my mom, who was doing the best that she could do. Nevertheless, it resulted in a lot of friction where, unfortunately, it resulted in mom and dad getting a divorce. That caused even more friction with the child because mom could not assist me with the learning, or dad could not assist me to overcome those odds with learning. So often when I would go to school, I couldn't comprehend, and a lot of the children, they would make fun of me. There's one episode where we actually showed me going to the chalkboard, trying to add 2 plus 2, and for the life of me, I could not come up with the answers. And the children just really made fun of me. But one thing occurred after the other until to the point they kept me in the back of the classroom. So that really had a big effect on my life as a child. I'm going to take a moment and talk to my man, Phil. Phil, you got any questions for me?
Yeah, I actually want to talk to you about your early childhood when you were at school, right? So you were, they called you dumb and dumbbell, right?
Yes.
How did you actually, since you were classified as having a learning disability, how did the teasing and the bullying make you feel as a child? Did you feel different?
Yes, Phil, I feel very different. In the book, Hey Dummy, A Testimony of an Overcomer, I talked about that even to the point I had discussed in the book that as a child, I even tried to commit suicide as a child because I felt that no one loved me. I felt that no one cared about me. I could remember when I would receive my report cards, I got what they call a F minus. Now, how can you get an F minus, Phil? But Lonnie got that. So I really felt the lowest that any child could ever feel. Often when I would go home, my parents would mention to me that how come you can't be smart like your other siblings? So that had a crippling effect on my life as a child.
Now you're the third of 6 children. You didn't get any like guidance from your older siblings, or they just didn't decide to help you out there? Or how was that? How was that dynamic like?
Well, Phil, what that looked like is that my siblings were struggling themselves. And even though I believe in their heart that they would want to try to help their little brother, but they had their own struggles. They have their own issues that they had to deal with. So the answer really to that, they just did not know how to do that. But something good happened even in the midst of that situation, because my situation was so bad with learning disabilities and thinking about or made efforts to try to take my life. That's when the city stepped in. I think you would call it like your social workers, what have you.
Yeah.
They stepped in and they took control. I was able to, they put me in a special program at my school. And through my school, they were able to give me that support that I needed as a child to help me to deal with some of the issues in the family environment that I was dealing with. But most importantly, Phil, I need to talk about, I remember one day walking down the street, Hillman Street, one of the toughest streets in Youngstown, and I saw a sign that was on top of a counseling center, and the sign said that you are somebody because God doesn't make any junk. It was then that was one of the counseling centers that I was invited into, and those counselors began to work with me, and that was the first step in helping me to realize that despite the opportunities that despite the troubles, there were opportunities for me to become somebody. So that started the first step journey into becoming successful.
So how did they actually help you though? What were some of the first things that they did to, I guess, just help you? How did they help you?
Well, the first thing that they done was, I remember Irma Davis, and the name of the counseling center was the Needle's Eye in Youngstown. And the first thing when I walked in to that Needle's Eye Counseling Center, I didn't know that the school had automatically contacted Miss Davis to let them know that we'll be sending Lonnie over, and they worked that out from the back end. So the first thing that when I walk into that door, Irma Davis gave me a hug, and that meant so much to me because I don't think I have ever, in my childhood, I have never had a hug before. But by Irma Davis giving me that hug, and the people that were in that counseling center, they believed in me. And I just felt that, just a feeling that I had that, yes, I belong here, and they're going to help me. And they're going to, one of the things that Irma Davis had done for me, the Needle's Eye not only helped children and adults and those struggling in families, but they also was a great support to the communities. They would provide food and clothing for those that are in need. So the second thing that Davis did, the Needle's Eye, they helped me to unload the trucks, to help when the food would come in from the various donations and what have you. Part of my responsibility was unloading the trucks, and also as a child, packing the baskets to give to those that were in need. And I just can't tell you how much that made me feel as a child. It made me feel that I am somebody. And just as the Needle's Eye was putting into me the trust and love, that I was able to demonstrate that.
Is the Needle's Eye, is it still around?
Yes, sir. The Needle's Eye is still around in Youngstown, Ohio. They're doing exceptionally well. Unfortunately for Miss Irma Davis, she's no longer there. She's in. She has transitioned over to everlasting life, but often I can feel her love and compassion and encouraging me to, Lonnie, go on. You can make the difference. And that's why we're going to make the difference with this podcast.
That's right. And I want to touch back on something that you said that really made my heart kind of jump. You said you were never hugged.
No, not to my no, not to my life. I was never, as a child. I didn't know what a hug was. I didn't know. I have never heard the words as a child, as that I love you. I have never heard that before. And
Now, was it different for your siblings, or was all of your parents' children, they never received that?
never received that. We can go into probably maybe in future podcasts or have you. We can dig deeper into that. But the story of the what Lonnie went through and his siblings and the abuse of my sisters as well as myself, that's readable and what have you, that the listeners can, they'll have that opportunity to listen on the audios or Amazon, what have you. It goes into deep detail.
Okay, so the Needle's Eye, was that more like was it like a faith-based center?
Yes. Needle's Eye is a faith-based center even today, but they don't discriminate against anyone. They anyone that needs support and help, Needle's Eye is there to help them.
So was that the first time you learned about Christ?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, let me backtrack on that because the Needle's Eye helped step me through to get me more understanding of the Bible and more understanding that despite me as a child feeling that no one loved me and cared about me, I do recall Irma Davis telling me the most perfect love story. And I was so intrigued as a child, what is the perfect love story? And that's when she told me about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. That's when she told me how he loved us so much that he gave his life so that we can have eternal life. And then she began to walk me through the word and what it means to be a Christian, and that even the struggles that I had as a young man thinking that I need to take my life at that point, because that she witnessed to me as a young man, there's not enough words to express how that made a difference for me. Because when she shared with me the love of Christ, I felt that I had now had the anointing. I had the love, the compassion, not only of the Needle's Eye, but the love and the support of God in my life. And you know what, Phil? What's so amazing is that when I start going to school, after they showed me the love of Christ and the support that I was given, I went from a F- student to an F+ student. I know you're laughing there. From an F+ student, and before it all over with, even with my speech impediment, I end up representing the entire district in Youngstown, Ohio, in public speaking, and also making the honor roll. So you guys going to have to get that book on Amazon or Audibles, and you're going to hear the whole story there.
I'm still surprised at the F- thing. That's
how can you get an F-? Well,
yeah. Okay, so I'm still. How old were you when you actually ran into the Needle's Eye?
I had to be probably around 7, 8, right around in that area.
Okay, all right. So let's go to when you're in high school. How was your speech and how was your public speaking? How were your grades around then?
Well, during that time, my grades, they can see my grades getting better, but not to the point where you were like an honor student. So they still had to put me in what they called classes for learning disabilities, special need classes and what have you. And often every day, at a certain period of time in class, let's say 1 o'clock, you had to go to the motivation class. And it was then that we had another great, outstanding teacher, Dr. Razi. And Dr. Razi would take that time and kind of work with each student with his assistant to help them to overcome their learning disabilities, to teach them how to read. And I would never forget that. I remember the strength and the key words that Irma Davis would breathe into me and say, Lonnie, when you go to that class and when they ask you to read a paragraph, just remember that you can do all things through Christ that will strengthen you. Now, I'm going to tell you a miracle that happened that day. Right. You may be saying, okay, Lonnie, tell me what that miracle is all about, brother. Well, I'm going to tell you, right across from the motivation class that I was in was the honor student class. And those honor students, they will compete with other schools in public speaking. And I will never forget, in the motivation class, Dr. Razi said, hey, Lonnie, it's your turn to recite this paragraph that we have written. And I paused for a moment, and I thought that I was going to start stuttering again. But I remember I can do all things through Christ that strengthen me. And you know what, brother? I recited that paragraph so much that I looked at Dr. Razi, he stood up. The students in the class stood up. Dr. Razi said, hold up, Lonnie, right, one moment. He went across the hall and got Jim Thorpe, Mr. Thorpe, who taught the honor students and helped them with public speaking, but they could never take first place in public speaking when they debated against all the public schools. He said, Thorpe, listen to this student, listen to Lonnie. Lonnie, recite that paragraph again. And I begin to cite that paragraph. Thorpe, look at Razi. He said, you know what? This is our key. We can win this tournament. So guess what happened, brother? So what happened was Razi said, Lonnie, we're going to put you in the competition. I said, man, I don't know nothing about no competition. He said, no, but we're going to help you. We're going to write the speech, and only thing that you have to do is memorize it. And the title of it was Tomorrow's Promise. What do you hope tomorrow's promise will bring? And brother, I recited it, went over and over again. The next thing you know, we had the first tournament. The audience was packed. Family members were packed. Dignitaries in the audience were packed. So when they called Lonnie to come out, I was a little nervous there, Brother Phil, but I tell you what, they had, the teacher gave me the signal. Razi says, your turn. And boy, when I opened up my mouth, the Lord spoke through me. I can do all things through Christ that strengthen me. Guess what? We took first place. They were shocked. Everybody was shocked. Is in that book. A Hey Dummy, Testimony of an Overcomer is in that book. You got to read it. God showed up in that book so much that the news station in Youngstown, Ohio said, we finally took first place in public speaking. And guess who took it? Wow. Guess who took it? I'm going to say this. They didn't say that, but a lot of people say, you mean to tell me the dummy, the kid that we've been making fun of, the F- student is now took first place in public speaking, and the students that got the 4.0 average, they can't do it, but this kid did. It's the anointing, covering of God, having favor with the Lord that helped me to get to that point. And from that point on, Brother Phil, my life has never been the same.
Wow. How did that make you feel, honestly?
Well, I felt on the top of the world. Now I got to be careful when I say that, because, you got to be humble, but I felt really good. And you know what? This is how I truly felt I am somebody because God doesn't make any junk.
Wow. I know it's been quite a while, but do you remember some of that that paragraph, or no? Did you forget it?
I didn't forget it. I got that in the book, the whole speech.
Oh, wow.
Oh, they took excerpts of that. So I want my audience to be able to say, hey, what was that? We got to go get the book now. We got to go read it. Now, you may be saying, Brother Lonnie, you putting a lot of emphasis on that book through Amazon and audibles. What's going on with that? Well, here's the other part of the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And what that mission is, we want to produce a film, a motion picture film. And by purchasing that book, the royalties from that, every penny goes into what we call the can. And that is what is used to produce our film, to be able to, the proceeds not only for that, but to also to help organizations like the Needle's Eye and other organizations to breathe life into those that are faced with various disabilities.
Wow. And you can also, if you need some easier help, you can go to our website, heydummypodcast.com. The book is listed up there too. You can just click on the book button, and then you can buy it from there. But yeah, so was that the end of your stutter?
That was, you see me using my hands a lot because that's one of the techniques that my doctor has taught me, my therapist has taught me from a child on up, is that sometimes when there's words that you run into difficulties with, where I'm able to use my hands or what have you, that's one of the tools that I use. Now, also in the American Academy of Pediatrics, that story was ran in 1976. They did an exclusive story on my life. The American Academy of Pediatrics, 1976. You can pull that up. And they also talk about the various techniques and what have you. And you can also see that in our website. You can also see that we have that entire story in there, as well as with our podcast.
Okay, so today, people with learning disabilities, they would classify them. They would be called something else instead of just dumb or anything like that. Do you have an official diagnosis now, or is there anything medically that you can be listed as, or not?
Well, I think that right now, there's still challenges with me. So sometimes, especially when it comes down to, I just have to learn how to take my time in certain things. Like, for an example, when it comes down to mathematics or what have you, sometimes when it comes down to comprehension, I have to learn I come early, I stay late, and I move just through the process. It just may take me a little bit more processes for that. But at the end of the day, we end up getting where we need to be.
Okay, so you graduated high school, right? And then you went straight into college, or did you wait a little bit, or what was your life like after high school?
Well, okay, so after high school, I remember, this is also in the story, I don't want to tell everything, because people say, there's no need for me to buy the book.
True.
But I can give you this here. Okay, so I remember I was planning on, I wanted to go to college, and I remember her name. I'm not gonna mention it right now, but I'm gonna say, let's say Miss Cookie. Let's put it that way, okay? Because I like cookies. So, they had what they call, where they meet with every student and they say, what would you like to do with your career now that you're ready to go to college? So I told her, well, hey, I like to go to college, call it career day. She told me, so Lonnie, I'm sorry to tell you, but I don't think you're capable of going to college. The best thing that you can do, you can go join the Army. So you'll make a fantastic foot soldier, and for a moment, I believed that. But then something kicked inside of me and say, no, you are somebody, because God doesn't make any junk. Now, I don't take anything away from the military, because at the end of the day, I did go into the military, but I didn't go in as a foot soldier. I went in as an officer, because I realized, again, that you can do all things through Christ that strengthen you. So I went from overcoming that fear, because it was a slight fear of even going to college, but God gave me the strength to go. I ended up getting a 2-year degree in labor studies. And then from the 2-year degree in labor studies, I had a mentor, John Smith. He was a supervisor at St. Elizabeth Hospital. And he told me, Lonnie, I see something in you. You just cannot stop at the 2-year degree in labor studies. So they pushed me to go back to school. I ended up getting a bachelor's of arts in communications. And then from there, I fell in love with school. And next thing you know, I had a master's degree in business, then went back and got another master's degree. And then just recently, Phil, we were honored and humbled to receive our doctorate in business administration.
Wow.
So the question was, well, how can a dummy do something like that? But I had to realize I'm somebody, because God doesn't make any junk. And that's why I want to inspire those that see this podcast, that despite the odds and despite your background and despite what you have been told, you are somebody, because God doesn't make any junk, and you can make it. But the one thing that I learned, Phil, and that is, a lot of times if you take a person out of the negative environment and place them in a positive environment, and that could be surrounding them around positive people that can really make the difference, and that can encourage that person that, yes, you can make it. And not just only the words, but we can give you the support system that you need to be successful.
Wow. Honestly, I think that's a perfect ending point. Really, you kind of gave some good trinkets for what's to come on the podcast, and I think you gave people some good motivation on what to do, because I'm excited to be a part of this podcast, because I want to learn more about what's classified as a disability, speech therapy, psychology. I want to know all about that stuff. So if you are interested, please make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you share the podcast and get the word out there. So before we get out of here, Lonnie, do you have any final words?
Well, the final words again is thank you so much. And I'm praying for everybody. I pray a blessing on you. I want to be a support for you in any way possible. And just thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to take time out to listen to us. Thank you. And thank you, Phil. You're the man.
All right, guys, we'll catch you next time.